Welcome everybody back to Friar Talk. Today we're going to be talking about the Padres outfield, if they need to add an outfielder, a couple different options. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. Going to be talking about projecting the best lineups and everything. Do want to say there was injury in Monday Night Football, so we'll keep anyone updated if we hear anything about that. But really, really scary stuff right now. So that's why we kind of postponed the live stream for a little bit. But we'll see what the situation is there because it's pretty really terrifying. But let's get into it. We're going to talk baseball. So we're going to be talking about now. Also, if anyone does get an update, please comment that in the chat if we don't bring anything up too. But talking about outfield, a guy that's been brought up quite a bit is Jurickson Profar to potentially bring him back. So I want to ask you guys, one, do you think it makes a lot of sense for the Padres to bring him back? And two, do you think that's something that's actually in the car, something that could happen? Because there's been no news at all on Jurickson Profar, which I find a little odd, not from anyone. I haven't heard anyone linked to Jurickson Profar, anything like that. It seemed like he was going to get, $15 million a year, $14 million a year. I don't know if that's still what he's going to end up getting, but all of a sudden, Padres don't really add anyone, and he's a guy that could potentially come back. He was really good last year. We were not very high on him. I personally was not very high on him coming into the year. We thought that left field was maybe the Padres' weakest spot, and a lot of that was because Profar was atrocious defensively the year before in the outfield, and he was kind of bouncing around like Fernando did as well, where he wasn't really a full-time outfielder. He was playing a lot of infield, a lot of utility, really struggled in the outfield. Last year, he was really good for the most part, and he was especially good from left field because he was throwing so many guys out, and he had a bunch of outfield assists. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think Jurickson Profar is a guy that the Padres should bring back as kind of like the final piece of the puzzle offensively?
I would love to have Jurickson Profar back. I can't really see him getting much more, if not. No, yeah, I don't really see him getting much more than Brandon Drury. He got 8.5 AAV. I think it was 2 years for 17 or something like that. With the Angels, I think Jurickson will probably get like 10 to 12. He did have a pretty good season. Yeah, his OPS was only like a 7. What was it, like around a 740 or something like that? But he did have really solid defense out there. He was a backbone for the Padres team. He was honestly really good most of the time in the leadoff spot, and he, other than really one or maybe two slumps, he was pretty consistent throughout the season. So I really enjoyed having Profar there. He's a great clubhouse presence. Everybody likes him. It seems like if he's one of everybody's best friends on the team. So I really want him back. And if you look at positional versatility, he can play left field. Doesn't really play center field very well, but he can play center field. He's played first base before. He's played second. So he does provide quite a bit of positional versatility. I want him back. I don't know how much sense it makes, considering you still need another pitcher, whether it's pitching depth or a fourth starter. I think they're in on Johnny Cueto. But as long as we have money to sign Profar and another pitcher, I'd be happy. I definitely think the Padres are in the trade market for another pitcher, whether it be a number 2, number 3, number 4, whatever it is. They're trying to get somebody to put in the pitching rotation. But as far as free agent bats go, I think Jurickson Profar makes the most sense because of he's been here already. He's been with this lineup. He's been around this group of people. He loves San Diego. I mean, he's really enjoyed his time here, and I've enjoyed seeing him kind of not have a career resurrection. You can even say kind of a career resurrection here. I've enjoyed it for sure.
I think if you want another legitimate starter, I don't think that's the way to go. Just because he's going to be making $15 million, you're going to have to pay another pitcher more than likely. So if you wanted to go a cheaper route, you have a couple other options just so you can get another pitcher, because pitching depth is kind of what has hurt us in the postseason the past few times we've been there. I mean, we looked at 2020, we legit didn't have any starters. Last year, Mike and Clev burned us really badly. Like, if we just had one more legitimate starter, we probably beat the Phillies, but we didn't. I like Profar. I think he's a great clubhouse presence. He's always there. He's always smiling. All the guys seem to like him. Though his slumping can be a little bit problematic sometimes. He did play great defense last year. I think he led the league in outfield assists. Like Isaac was saying, he played great defense. He can play a little bit of center field if you need him to, and he can play almost basically any infield position. The other guy that I was thinking about, which I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's Josh Harrison. He's currently a free agent. Oh, he is much older than Profar, so that's the only downside is he had a really good year last year. Does he continue it at age 35? He'll be a little cheaper. It'll allow you to maybe go out and get another pitcher. But hey, I'm good with either options. I think Profar is still really solid. I just don't know if 15 million a year is worth it for Profar.
And I think that's what we're going to kind of find out with Profar, because it's not super clear on, how much he's going to make, because that's what we're thinking heading into the year. But all of a sudden we see a lot of these teams have paid, a ton of money, and the contracts, I mean, typically they don't really go down, but when we kind of look back on guys that have signed later, like when Machado and Harper signed super late in free agency, those are superstars in their prime that are signing, $300+ million deals. So that's a little bit different, I feel like, where Profar is kind of like one of these mid-level guys that just had a career year. Some of the teams probably aren't going to buy into that. Others are going to buy into that. That already reduces kind of the market. And then it's this late in free agency. So it could be one of those things where it's like, yeah, you could be bidding against one team or no one or two teams. You know what I mean? Like it could be a small market where you're like, hey, Jerkson, this is our offer to you. It's 10 million or 8 million for 2 years, or, whatever it is, like a 2-year, $20 million deal with incentives or something like that. Right. And they're just like, you can take it if you want, or you can just wait out. Like you can wait until this day and then we'll pull the offer. And they're just kind of waiting to see, okay, is this, a good enough deal? Is this your best deal that you have? Or does someone offer you 2 for 24, or, something a little bit more, but it's like, I don't know. I don't really know that that's the case. So I hope that the Padres have done something like that. I hope that they've sent him an offer, or at least kind of let him know, like, hey, this is what will you be willing to work a deal out with you? And the Padres are kind of waiting, because I do think that you probably need one more outfielder. Maybe not, but I think having the depth, I don't know if you need a full-time starter, though. That's the thing. Because if you get a full-time starter in Profar, well, then when Fernando comes back, are you just planning to play him sometimes in the outfield, sometimes at short, and DH him? That's kind of a handful for him to come back with, and to have this utility role where he's doing a bunch of different things. I don't know if that's what you want to do with Fernando. So a guy like Josh Harrison Chase, I think that's super interesting, because he's going to be pretty cheap. I want to see his numbers lately, but I mean, you look at Profar's numbers last year. This was one of the best seasons. He had over 3 WAR, and that's Baseball Reference WAR. But he had a 111 OPS plus. Put up good numbers, was good defensively. I thought he was solid. So yeah, I mean, Harrison had a pretty solid year. Harrison's been pretty consistent, though. It's just kind of an older, cheaper option where you would be able to bring back a guy that everyone really likes. Because that's the other thing. Everyone really likes Profar in terms of the locker room, too, which I think is something that you have to give him credit for. Anyone else? Because I do want to talk about Bryan Reynolds here in a second, but is there anyone else, or kind of what you're thinking about for that final outfield spot? Is this something like someone that you think is maybe the best option? Are there any guys outside of Josh Harrison that you guys are really intrigued by? Excluding Bryan Reynolds, though, of course.
No, not really. I mean, if we're going with the bat, it depends on how much he's making, of course. I would rather just get Jerkson Profar back. But as far as outfielders or really anything in general, I'm not exactly sure. I think maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say first baseman because Cronenworth's going to be playing first base. But at the same time, there's still a trade or two to be made, whether that be Ha-Seong Kim, Trent Grisham, or shoot, maybe Jay Cronenworth. I'm not sure. I doubt it's Jay Cronenworth. I will say I highly doubt it's Jay Cronenworth. Dennis Lin recently put out an article that said he's one of the leaders in the clubhouse. He's a captain. Ownership loves him. AJ loves him. All that. He's not going nowhere. So that comes down to Ha-Seong Kim, Trent Grisham. Everyone's been arguing who makes more sense to deal, and that's up for you guys to debate. But I do think in order to acquire a pitcher, one of them or Jackson Merrill will have to go. But No outfielders, no one that I can really think of that's still in the market that I would really say let's go out of our way and sign him over, potentially Johnny Cueto or another pitcher that the Padres could use.
The only one I can think of, and it's depending on how much money he'd make, is Adam Duvall. He's an option that intrigues me just because he would provide some power. He can play. I think he played first for a little bit. He's played left field, and he'd be another power bat that the Padres could use as a DH and outfielder just to get Soto or Tatis some day off. Anyone who's playing the corner outfield, hell, if Cronenworth, it's a bad matchup from Cronenworth, you can throw Duvall at first. I think Duvall might be an option to look at, but it depends on how many years he wants and sort of the market around him, because I don't know how many teams are in on him. I don't know what his market value is right now, but it could be a risky option, but it also could be something that's very rewarding because, it worked out for the Braves. He had a 3.6 WAR last year, so he's not a bad option. It's just how much money he's going to make. Is he the biggest need right now? Should we go after another pitcher? Like Isaac said, I think we need another pitcher. I remember seeing a tweet. I don't remember who tweeted it, but they said, you don't need Cueto in the playoffs, but you definitely need Cueto to get to the playoffs. And that couldn't be more true.
Yeah, I'm there with you guys. And I don't think that they're really in a rush to make any moves right now, at least in terms of bringing Jerks and Profar back or trading for a pitcher. Cueto, I feel like Cueto would probably be a guy that they would sign right now. But we've also talked about it like you said, he's not like a pitcher that you really want as your 4 guy in the playoffs necessarily. But you can get Cueto now to eat up innings and do stuff, and you can make a flip later on in the season. But we did top 5 pitching rotations the other day, and the Padres weren't in Isaac's or mine. And if you look at their 1 through 3, they have a fantastic 1 through 3. But right now that 4-5 is a little bit sus, especially when you look at other contending teams in the MLB and like those top end teams. So I think that it probably makes a lot more sense to, especially depending on the money, if you only have so much left, then get the pitcher. But also, I'm not really going to be surprised if the Padres bring Profar back and go and get a pitcher and go sign Cueto, right? Like I at this point, like we can't keep saying like, oh, like I don't know how much money they have, because it seems like they don't really care. That's what it seems like. So I don't really know, but that's kind of what I'm at right now. I don't really think that it has to be a one or the other situation. I think they could definitely bring back Profar. With that said, another guy that they could potentially target. I mean, I don't know if this is going to happen. We've talked about him so much, but Bryan Reynolds, dude, he apparently has requested a trade. We've brought him up as a guy that the Padres could trade for, like, I don't know how many times have we brought him up. We bring him up like every time there's discussions about him.
A ton.
Right? Do you think there's any chance the Padres go and trade for him?
I'll say no. They gave up all their prospect capital for Juan Soto and Josh Bell, and it made sense. I mean, why? I think it was smart to do that. I mean, I've said it multiple times. Odds of any of those guys turning into Juan Soto is like very minimal. But at the same time, now you still have Jackson Merrill. You just got Ethan Salas, Dylan Lesko. Shoot, there was another top prospect I'm thinking of. I can't think of him right now. But we got rid of our prospect capital, and it seems like the Pirates are intentionally saying, look, you're going to have to get fleeced by us if you want Bryan Reynolds. You look at Bryan Reynolds last year, he put up a 2.9 F WAR. Trent Grisham put up a 2.1. Though the biggest difference between them is where Trent Grisham is really good, Bryan Reynolds supposedly isn't that good. Where Bryan Reynolds is really good, Trent Grisham is not that good. In terms of WRC plus, Bryan Reynolds, a 125 WRC plus. Trent Grisham, last year, 83. 83 sucks. 83 is not that good. However, 125 is either above average or pretty darn good. So, to me, it's just a switch off. But I'm not talking about Bryan Reynolds' best year, because last year is Bryan Reynolds like, that was okay. because the year before the dude was a beast. I don't know what his WAR was. I didn't check, but the year before, you look at his baseball savant page, it's nothing but
Just
red.
under 6. Just under
Just under
6.
6. That's insane.
5'9".
Like a 5.9 WAR. That is crazy. Now that's a Bryan Reynolds year that you're saying maybe we should trade for him, right? Maybe he's worth it. But now you see, all right, a 2.9 WAR. What type of player is this guy? And I don't know. Maybe he's better with lineup protection. He probably is. But for what's said to be a Juan Soto package, or what's said to be in a crazy ask by the Pirates, that's not really worth it.
Yeah, I'm with you. How many years is it now that we've had Bryan Reynolds trade rumors like in a row?
2 or 3 now.
3. It's kind of crazy. Like the Juan Soto type trade package, you couldn't do it. You just can't. You need something in like not just Bryan Reynolds. You need these prospects for later. Like realistically, you can't get rid of Dylan Musko or Snelling. You have a lot of pitchers that are going to become free agents. You're going to be on the books for a lot of money between Machado, Tatis, and a couple other guys. And you are probably going to have to spend more money on pitching because you don't have a lot of it. If you want to extend Soto, you're going to have to need a lot more money to do it, which we still don't know if Machado's going to opt out or not, which it's been rumored he might opt out just so that he can make a little bit more money per year, which that's going to hurt you. So realistically, you kind of need these prospects to pan out right now. I know AJ Preller is really great at finding all these guys, but at the same time, you need some of them to hit. So I don't think you can trade right now.
Yeah, not even only like just a lack of prospect capital, but the prospect capital that you want to have at the deadline if an arm gets hurt, if anything happens where you have flexibility to go and try to make a move for an ace. That's why I don't think this trade would happen. The only way I think that the Padres could end up landing Bryan Reynolds is if for some reason the Pirates are super, super high on Trent Grisham. And they're like, look, we know that this dude, Bryan Reynolds, we know that he's like had this great year in 2021, but let's say that we take, because like Bryan Reynolds also, he was horrible in 2020. He sucked, but that's a short year. But then the year before that, he was super good and like he was really good. So he's had like 2 really good seasons, one pretty good season last year, and then one like bad short season where Grisham has had like one pretty mess season. So I don't think they're going to view it like that. I don't think they're going to view it as that similar of a trade-off. But if for some reason they did, I think you could give up like Grisham plus, depending on what that is, for him. They have the same amount of control. Bryan Reynolds is slated to make a little bit more next year, but it's not that crazy. But I don't think the Padres are going to want to do that. One, they always speak really highly of Trent Grisham, which honestly I'll take with a grain of salt for what they actually say to the media. Because what do you think they're going to say? Like, oh yeah, we think this guy sucks. We think he can't hit. No, of course they're not going to say that. But they like certain positions to be really good defensively. And we've seen that. The left side of the infield and center field. That's what they've kind of targeted. That's what Preller's targeted. You had Manny Margot before, right? Like that's the style of player they've went after. A really, really good defensive player. They also have like no lefties in the lineup. And we just saw them opt to go with Matt Carpenter instead of Brandon Drury, probably likely because he's a lefty. So you're going to subtract a lefty from your head. You're going to do this and you're going to have to give up a lot for him. I think Bryan Reynolds is a lot better than Trent Grisham. At least he has been. But I don't really see the Padres doing it. I don't really think it makes much sense for them. And so, like, of course, that there's always going to be these Bryan Reynolds rumors, but I hope Bryan Reynolds goes somewhere cool too, because I feel bad for him. Like he plays like great years in Pittsburgh, and it's just like, but it doesn't really count. He plays for a meaningless team, and it's like, dude, this guy's actually like put up some good seasons. Like he hit 27 bombs last year. He hit 24 the year before that. Like that's and he had over a 900 OPS and then over an 800 OPS in back-to-back seasons. Like that's really, really good offensively. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I really don't.
Yeah, there's almost no way. You're more likely to see him go to like the Yankees or the Dodgers, something like that. Those big market teams, they have solid prospect capital and they have a need out there. Yeah, Snelling and Lesko. Me personally, I don't care to keep Merrill. You already have 1, 2, 4, 5, 7 shortstops locked up for quite a while. I understand he could play a different position, but Lesko, Snelling, any pitching prospects, yeah, I want to try keeping him around as much as possible. Like, being realistic, if Juan Soto wasn't on the market last year, probably all those prospects are still Padres. Abrams, Gore, they're all still Padres. But when someone like that hops on the market, it's you got to do what you got to do. Yeah, I don't see a trade for Reynolds happening, and it's like I don't understand why Reynolds would be a priority for us. You have a really good lineup already. Fernando, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Ha-Seong Kim, Jake Cronenworth. All these guys are projected for around a 100 WRC plus or more. I think everyone in the Padres lineup is projected for 100 WRC plus or more. So clearly that's not a need. A need right now is depth for the lineup and another starter or two. So I think prioritizing a guy like Bryan Reynolds is kind of weird. If the Padres do go that route, which I don't think they will, I can't imagine any team other than the Yankees or the Dodgers will, because that asking price sounds like it's been kind of crazy. And I feel like if the asking price wasn't crazy, he would have already been dealt. So I don't think the Padres will be in on Bryan Reynolds. Like I said, it's more likely you see them go after pitching via the trade market. But we'll see how all that plays out. I think the lineup is perfectly fine the way it is. You got the best top four in all of baseball. You got solid depth around it with Jake Cronenworth, Ha-Seong Kim. Trent Grisham's not that good, clearly, but I guess for the glove, you can kind of trade it off. And there's a lot of people that think he's going to bounce back, but I'm not sure if I believe it, because with him bouncing back means you got to get his swing and miss rate down. And that is probably one of the hardest things to do. So I don't know how much hope I have in him, but all I can hope for him is around, another gold glove and hopefully like a 720 OPS.
I'd take a 700.
Yeah, seriously.
Like a 220 average and 700 OPS. Give me that, and I'm okay.
I completely agree. Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny that you mentioned the Yankees as potential trade partners to the Pirates. I kind of want to see Yankees fans package deals for Bryan Reynolds, because the ones for Fernando Tatis were beyond crazy, and having Bryan Reynolds where he could potentially be. He's not as good as Fernando Tatis in any way, but he's on a cheaper contract, and he plays a premium position in center field where I think it's Aaron Hicks is playing. So that would be a major upgrade for them. So, kind of want to see how they're going to combine Isaiah Kenner-Falefa and Josh Donaldson into that trade package and say they're winning. So, yeah, I just thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I agree with you. So here's I like Merrill a lot, and I think if we wanted to, we could use him as the second baseman. Say we have Xander at short. What if Kim's final year in his contract is next year, right? Is this year?
Is it next year?
I thought it was next year.
Let me see. I'll look right now.
If it's
No,
next
he has
year.
2 more. He has 2 more.
2 more? Okay,
Yeah,
so what I think you should do is, in Kim's final year of his contract, depending on if Jackson Merrill makes incredible strides this year, next year, if he's pushing on the major league doors next year, then do it next year. If not, the year after that. What you can do is you can platoon both of them at second. You can put Merrill against righties and Kim against lefties, and sort of see how Merrill plays against MLB talent and allow Kim to face what he's really good at and maximize the lineup. You'll both have really solid defenders in each. Hell, if Jackson Merrill's makes strides this year and sort of forces the Padres' hand, I'm all for it, because then guess what? It either increases Jackson Merrill's trading price, it makes Kim a little bit more expendable, but also at the same time might be better for Kim because he's facing lefties, which he demolishes, and we don't know how Merrill's going to do against lefties in the major leagues. It's just kind of like, well, if we have both of them, might as well use both of them and play them to their strengths. So, and plus, once Kim's contract ends, if he balls out the next 2 years and is into for a major contract, you have a cheap contract in Merrill. He's got a couple years experience in the MLB as a platooner, and he can make strides that way. So I think it's one of those things where you keep him, you kind of platoon him in there for a little bit, and then if someone's contract and has like a godly contract year, you can replace him with Merrill and be like, okay, you know what? We have all our money tied up in Machado, Tatis, Soto, and Xander. We got Merrill. He's doing just fine.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the Padres do with Merrill and Ha-Seong Kim, just because Ha-Seong Kim, like, he took a huge stride, and we always talk about this, but a lot of guys that come from KBO, especially KBO, it takes them until their third year to really, really blossom. And I think, I mean, I don't know what like the numbers say like against his fastballs and stuff, but at least from a comfortability standpoint, like watching him day in and day out, I thought he looked a lot better against high velocity, especially than he did in his rookie season last year. I think he was, I thought he was a lot better last year. I still think he can make improvements, and he's so good defensively that I wouldn't be surprised if he has a really good year this year, the Padres could look into extending him, honestly. And that's where you kind of wonder, like, all right, well, what does Merrill do? Because if Merrill keeps balling out, if Merrill's like really good and Merrill ends up making his way on the team, it basically means one of Kim or Cronenworth, that'd be the guy he'd replace. So it's just kind of like, all right, well, when's that going to be? And now you have Xander there too, and there's a lot of guys. So I don't know. I really don't know. I also see this right here, and I think Chase, I think you smiled when you saw this from Irie
Yeah,
right
bro.
here.
I think it's time.
Yeah, I think so. We didn't get it last time.
Yeah, well, sad to see him go. Hope he does really good things. If he wanted to come back, he can come back and retire as a Padre. He was absolutely my favorite Padre to watch. He was actually my favorite Padre that played in my lifetime. It's really sad to see him go. I wanted to see him another year. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he balls out. I mean, can't hate the man. He gave his heart for San Diego. What he did after beating the Dodgers, going down to Gaslamp and buying everyone shots, that's a class act. Nothing but love for the man.
I like it, dude. And I feel like Will Myers is always interesting because like it feels like, statistically like he did struggle a lot, but in terms of like how he kind of was like seen by San Diego fans, I thought that was really cool. And I feel like there's not a lot of guys that sign like big contracts where like that's the thought on them. Like everyone kind of liked Will Myers that was a Padres fan. I mean, so I don't know. I thought that was pretty sweet. But yeah, Chase, we lost your guy. At least he's in small, Great American Small Park because
He gonna ball,
honestly,
bro.
we were talking about this. Yeah, we were saying like, dude, he could have a crazy year. Like he could hit a ton of bombs.
He's gonna do good.
So that's gonna be interesting to see if he looks really good. It would be cool too if Will Myers kind of had a little bit of a revived career because it wasn't that long ago, like last year when he kept getting hurt, where we were talking about like, dude, is this a guy that could retire at the end of the year, like because all these injuries? It would be cool to see him have a little bit of revival, but we'll see what happens there. Anything else Padres wise? I know we're going to talk about starting lineups in a second here, but anything else outside of that we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about Pablo Lopez because he's been linked to the Padres. Going to talk about a couple other like guys that like a Cueto, for instance, Lopez, Cueto. We're going to talk about those guys later this week when we're talking like all about pitching. But I don't know, anyone else that you guys are kind of thinking of anything on your mind before you get into the lineups?
No, not really. You mentioned the trade partner being the Marlins. I mean, they got a bunch of pitching that they could be looking to get rid of, and they fit the Padres in terms of they could use a shortstop or a center fielder. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. And when you're thinking of trades, I personally, of course, I want Luzardo. Of course, I want Cabrera, one of those guys. But I saw something today from someone in Miami, whether he was a beat reporter or not. I don't know what he was, but he was saying that the price to get Lopez would probably be quite a bit cheaper than the price to get any of the other two because control is a big thing. Those other guys have many, many years of control, and they're going to be very good pitchers. So it does make sense in terms of, all right, Pablo Lopez, he's a pretty solid pitcher. He only has 2 years of control. So, yeah, he'll probably be cheaper than the other two. The Twins are another are another trade partner that makes some sense in terms of you can either go after an innings eater like Kenta Maeda, who's not that good, but Sonny Gray's also there. Um, yeah, I don't know any other trade partners, but we'll talk about all that sometime this week because obviously pitching is going to be the main thing for the Padres.
Yeah, that's the only reason I liked Cabrera over Lopez. One, he's a little bit younger, he's got more years of control, but at the same time, yeah, you got to realize the cost of acquiring him is going to go up. So, I mean, 2 years of Pablo Lopez is still great. You can't really beat that. He did have a really weird second half of the season where he struggled a little bit, but I feel like it's kind of an outlier. The only other guy maybe that it's not necessarily a trade partner or anything. I know I saw him get brought up in the comments, but Wade Miley. I'm just gonna keep putting it out there. Like, hey guys, can we please get another lefty? And can it please be Wade Miley? Like, get Wade Miley and Johnny Cueto for cheap. Have them fill out the rotation. Use Nick Martinez as a piggyback or, as a sixth man in the beginning of the year, and then like maybe a sixth man towards the end just to get some guys some extra rest. I mean, we just need a little bit more depth. I know we might rely on Jay Grimm or Ryan Weathers, but I really kind of don't want to see Ryan Weathers right now. It's considering what happened with him last year, and if you looked at his stats or kind of followed it game by game, it was one of those things where, yeah, if he was already getting lit up in Petco Park, and I know El Paso's not the most pitcher-friendly place in the world, but I can't see that again, dude. That was horrible.
Dude look depressed, bro.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about these lineups. Let's do our top 5 lineups in baseball right now. I have mine right here, so I can start out. I'll go through it quickly, and then I'll do kind of brief things after that. My honorable mentions, this is crazy, I think, to say, but I'm going to go with the Dodgers and the Braves. I will explain why they're honorable mentions in a second here, because typically those are like top 3 offenses often. At 5, I have the Blue Jays. 4, I have the Mets. 3, I have the Astros. 2, I have the Padres. 1, I have the Phillies. I am counting Bryce Harper and Fernando Tatis in this. This is full strength. This isn't counting Harper's ACL. So I'm not looking at it like in terms of what the offensive production is going to be, but in terms of like when they're all healthy, who's the best. Reason the Dodgers and the Braves don't make it is because for the Dodgers, you have Miguel Vargas, James Outman. I have a lot of faith in those guys to probably be pretty good players because the Dodgers develop well. But it's just kind of question marks right now. And when you rank them up against the other top 5, it's hard to put them there, I feel like. The Braves, you lose Swanson, you bring in Sean Murphy. I think they're going to be fine, but they're just kind of a little bit outside. They are also very likely to, be up in there. The Blue Jays last year had the second best offense in the MLB in terms of, I think it was WRC plus. And they are just absolutely like stacked in terms of that lineup. So I think they're going to be a top 5 offense again. The Mets, I'm assuming Correa's there. Last year they were pretty good. I think a little bit overrated. People have them at 1 a lot of times. But I think they're good. I think they're really good. And I think they got a lot better. 3, got the Astros. The Astros are always up there. I mean, anytime you have Jordan and Altuve, you're going to be up there, honestly. And they're always a top offense in the league. I have them at 3, Padres at 2. I think the Padres got a lot better offensively. If you look at their last year's numbers, not that great. However, you're adding Xander Bogaerts and Fernando Tatis. That is the biggest addition of any team's offense this offseason. And then at 1, you got the Phillies. I think when the Phillies are on, they are the scariest offense in the league because of all the power that they have. And I know that a lot of people don't like Phillies at 1 because they're like, oh, look at this. Well, look at how they look in the playoffs. Look at how it looks when Bryce Harper's on and Schwarber's on, or any of the other guys in their offense is actually playing well because they are so ridiculous. So I think that one might be a hot take, but dude, there you add Turner too. You have Real Muto, you have Castellanos. Like, you have Castellanos, he's supposed to be hitting 6. That's ridiculous. That's so deep. So yeah, that's where I'm at in my top 5.
Yeah, I was trying to take and was trying to think of my top 5 on the spot because I was looking at the list right now, or this list I'm trying to go off of all these lineups, and it's pretty tough. Honorable mention, I really want to put him at 5, but I'll put him at 6. I'm gonna go with the Dodgers. But I think by the end of the season, they'll be a top 5 lineup. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, and Max Muncy at your top is still really good. Probably expecting a bounce back year from Max Muncy. You added JD Martinez. He's kind of old, but the Dodgers will get something really good out of him. And then they kind of went with youth with Miguel Vargas and James Outman. Miguel Vargas actually looked kind of good in his small stint as a Dodger. So I think by the end of the season, we'll probably be talking about him as a top 5 lineup because they always are. 5, I'll go with the Cardinals. I really like the Cardinals lineup. Tommy Edman just produced a really, really good year. They added Wilson Contreras, 2 MVP candidates in Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. Lars Nootbaar hits dingers. And I do like that lineup. 4, I'm going to go with the Braves. They just got Sean Murphy, who, maybe he's not the best with his bat itself, but that is a huge acquisition. He's probably one of the better bats when it comes to catchers. Ronald Acuna, of course, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, all these guys that could potentially all be MVP candidates. Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna, Ozzy Albies is going to be back. I mean, that's a pretty damn good, scary lineup. That if it was completely healthy, we'd probably be talking about as a top 5 lineup pretty consistently. Let's see, who else do I got? I'm going with the Astros. I really like the Astros at number 3. Jose Altuve, Jeremy Pena. I think that's a really good lineup that constantly dominates in the AL. They're always one of the top 2 seeds, and I mean they've been going to the World Series a lot. Like, so they got to be doing something right over there. 2, I'm going with the Padres. Of course, you got probably the best top 4 in baseball: Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto, and then you got guys that, 2-time All-Star Jake Cronenworth, the guy that just produced a 3.7 WAR, and Ha-Seong Kim. Austin Nola is not that great, but you look at the catcher's landscape right now, and it is really not that good. So Austin Nola is all right. Who am I missing? Oh, Trent Grisham. Yeah, I'll say he's not that good, but I mean, if he gets anywhere around 100 WRC plus and kind of does what we kind of expect him to do, which is not much. It's like a 220 average, like a 700, 730 OPS, somewhere in between there. That's not that much, but that could be a very scary Padres lineup. And then number 1, if they get Carlos Correa, I'll go with the Mets. But if they don't get Carlos Correa, I don't know if they're in my top 5. I know he hits nukes. I don't like Pete Alonso. But he hits nukes. Other than that, though, I can't really say, like, for how much money they spent, I can't really say that lineup looks much scarier or even much different than it did last year, other than if they add Carlos Correa. But if they do, he's their number 1. If not, I don't know where I'd put him.
Fuck. I'm still like struggling putting my list together right now. I'd probably go like 2 honorable mentions, Phillies and the Dodgers. I'll put the Braves at 5 just because Ronald Acuna is still sort of kind of figuring out his self after that knee injury. I think now that he's a year further away, he's going to go back to his MVP self and kind of cement himself as a top 3 player in baseball. I mean, before his knee injury, he was just absolutely ridiculous. You could argue he was just as good as Tatis. He was just as good as Trout. Like, that man was a menace in baseball when he was fully healthy. He was just godly. Number 4, I'll put the Cardinals. I have the Cardinals over the Braves just because, like you said, you had 2 MVP candidates. You have Lars Nootbaar, Tommy Edman. I know Tyler O'Neill had a little bit more of a down year, but if he goes back to how he was the year before, that man just hit straight nukes. That man's a tank. Go probably Padres at 3. I'm gonna put the Astros at 2 just because actually it's kind of a toss up there. I mean, it's a little bit of a toss up. I mean, you have more power in the Astros lineup right now. Like, more guys that just hit home runs. You have Jordan Alvarez, who's just a freaking cheat code against right-handed pitching, and that's kind of where the Padres tend to struggle to get their power out against. So, though you do have Tatis coming back, you have Xander coming in, so you get what, like 60 to 70 home runs added to your lineup. So that always helps. So I feel like it's a little bit of a coin toss between those two. Then number one, if Correa goes, like as I said, the Mets. If he doesn't, you could slide any of those teams up one, or just slide those teams up one, and then add Mets to the honorable mentions. Though even then, I would take the Phillies over the Mets lineup. It's hard to believe in the Mets when you spend that much money and don't really have that great of a product to put on the field. I mean, yeah, you have some good players, but what do you have to show for it?
You guys a little bit higher on the Correa signing than I am. I mean, I think we're all Mets haters, honestly, though. I already saw the Pete Alonso thing in the comment. I agree. Pete Alonso is cringe as fuck. Like he's corny, bro. Like I don't know. There's just something about him. Kind of. I feel like maybe it's because he was like immediately was beefing with Chris Paddock. Maybe that's part of it. We're just like, dude, remember that? Like
it was the whole rookie of the year thing.
I remember that.
And obviously, one outlasted than the other.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. One's probably gonna get paid a pretty solid payday, and the other is gonna come off Tommy John. I just don't like him, man. I don't know. The dude is super cringe. Like, dude is a walking cringe billboard. But
yeah, 2 years ago, I was okay with him because of the home run derby, like him bumping Deep Mob during the home run derby, just kind of like in his zone. Like I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Then the next year, I was like, yeah, no, this is now overplayed.
I don't like that guy, bro.
So Chase, you had the Phillies at honorable mention. Isaac, where did you have the Phillies?
Shoot, I don't even know. I don't know if I put him. I don't think I put him in my top 5.
Bro, you guys are sleeping on the Phillies, man.
No, it's hard. I know. I didn't want to, but I
You're
really
sleeping on the Blue Jays. I don't remember hearing anyone say the Blue Jays.
I have Blue Jays.
Blue Jays have a pretty solid lineup too.
Blue Jays in either.
Okay, so go through yours again, just like 1 through 5. I want to get these.
Shit. No, I gotta rethink it.
Okay, I have mine written down. It's Phillies, Padres, Astros, Mets, Blue Jays.
Okay, I think I went 1 through 5. I went Mets, Padres, Astros, Braves, Cardinals.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's what I went.
And Chase, you had the Cardinals in there too.
I had the Cardinals at 4 and the Braves at 5. Though you could realistically throw Seattle and Toronto in that mix too, just because there's a lot of good lineups. It's really hard to pick and choose because realistically, these lineups can change instantly just based on, okay, this guy's hurt, or this guy's all of a sudden going to have a career year and boost this lineup way further than it should ever be.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why I did it. That's why, in my opinion, I was doing it not on what because obviously there's going to be so many factors. It's not like, okay, well, this team's probably going to be top of here. Well, it's like, yeah, the Dodgers are probably going to be top 5. Why? Because, and the Braves are they're not my top 5, but they're probably going to finish top 5. The Phillies aren't going to finish number 1, obviously. But I'm assuming it's only when they're all healthy. That's why I have Bryce there. So obviously that's going to be a huge factor. The Phillies are my number 1, but I don't think they're actually going to finish at number 1. It's just more of once Bryce is there and then they come and have a playoff run again, you don't want to face that offense. That's more of my thought on it. Because I get what you were saying. It fluctuates a lot. But I see some of these in here. I'm going to go through them. Devin has honorable mentions: Dodgers, Mets, Braves, Mariners. Oh, the Mariners. None of us said the Mariners, but the Mariners are a good team too. Mm-hmm. Padres, Astros, Phillies. Yeah. Another honorable mention, he says Blue Jays, Cardinals. Ooh. And then where was it? Cobra says Astros, Phillies, Padres, Mets, Yankees. Oh, he has a lot. Braves, Cardinals, Dodgers, Jays, Diamondbacks.
That's a sleeper. That's a big old sleeper.
Yeah, that is a sleeper.
They're gonna be sneaky good though. They're gonna be shoot, what's that word everyone uses?
You think so?
I think they're gonna be a sneaky team.
Who'd they trade?
Great question.
Varsho.
And they got
It was a weird trade.
No, the Guardians is a good lineup too. I forgot the trade.
Last year.
Who?
The Guardians. Remember how bad their offense was?
Yeah,
They got Hedges.
man.
You got to knock them down. Bro. That's way worse than Grisham, man.
That's funny.
And then Justin said Houston, Philly, San Diego, Seattle, Atlanta. So yeah, you guys a little bit higher on Seattle than us, but I mean, I get it. Yeah, we'll have to see also what happens with Correa as well.
Yeah. Because I think if they don't get Correa, that's basically the exact same lineup as last year, and they were a pretty good lineup. But I think there's multiple lineups that got better.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely feel that way. But yeah. All right, guys. Anything else? I feel like that's kind of all I got.
Yep.
There's not a whole lot going on for the Padres right now. The dead of the off season. As we get a little bit closer,
wow, we actually have an established team. We don't need to go out and trade the entire farm to hope to win this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, and also like you look at where they're at, like you already had the big move. But it's like last year, like there was so many like holes they had, and we're like, you gotta do this, you gotta fix this, you gotta fix this. And then they fixed it, like they like kind of did some patchwork like 2 days before. But yeah. Rangers are gonna be very good. Yeah, especially in the future. Yeah, dude, their future rotation could be scary. Yeah, who'll be first 5 million player, Ohtani or Soto? Probably Ohtani because he's due it. Well, he's not going to get that big of a deal, is he? You guys think?
Shohei?
I thought he was going to be
getting. I thought he would get like a 4-year, 200 mil.
That makes sense. He's like, I don't know how old he is, but that would make sense.
He's up there.
Yeah, I think he's like almost 30, if not 30 already.
29, 30? I think he's going to be 30.
Let me put that with a caveat. Go ahead.
I was going to say, at the same time, you're paying Ohtani to be top 5 in both positions, basically.
Yeah.
Like, he was a top 5 pitcher in the AL, and he was arguably a top 3 hitter in the AL.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think Ohtani will make more on an AAV scale, but I think Soto will probably be the first $500 million deal because he's going to get more years. And let's see how old Ohtani is. Ohtani's 28 right now.
28.
He'll turn 29 next season. It's not like crazy.
No.
Maybe even more. Maybe he'll even get more years, but I don't know how big of a contract he's going to get. Only because he does both.
8 years, 400.
So you're not going to expect him to keep pitching. Like you're not going to pay him to do both when he's what? 38.
Yeah,
like,
I think he'll probably get a good amount because you're starting to see kind of like a little trend where players are taking a lot of years for lower AAV, but those years is kind of worth it. You got extra security.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know though.
Yeah. All right,
Bro,
I think that's it, guys.
There's no one that is obsessed with baseball like Ohtani is. Like, if you heard like how he trained, like in Japan, basically, like your rookie year, you're forced to sleep at basically the dorms at the stadiums. He continuously did that every single year. And when he was living here in America, he sent his paychecks to his mom, and he spent like 20 grand in his first 2 years just because he was always practicing and stuff. The man is like obsessed with baseball and being the best in the world. He is. If you go read the stories, man. Go read the stories about Shohei Ohtani. It will change your perspective on how obsessed this man is with being the best baseball player in the world. It's crazy.
Have you seen the like goal list he has? Where it's like, I'm gonna do this. And so he has these crazy like expectations and like goals where it's like, I'm gonna be the best player like this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make the MLB like this. I'm gonna do like X, Y, and Z. And it was like he wrote it when he was like 10 years old or something. And then it was like, I think last year he had accomplished every single thing on the list up to this point. And it was like, whoa, these are like insane goals. And he literally accomplished them all. So I wonder if maybe he would like a shorter term deal then, just for more flexibility in terms of always being on a winning team too. Yeah. Angels kind of probably has to annoy him. He's not in the postseason. That probably drives him insane. But yeah. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it. We'll be back, I think, on Wednesday. If not Wednesday, then Thursday, one of the two. But yeah. All right, guys, we'll be talking pitchers then. Everyone have a great night, and we'll see y'all soon.